Welcome to another edition of E.W. Jackson for President of the United States of America. Great to be with you again this morning. I got a lot to cover this morning. I can never talk about all the stories that really require attention in the 30 minutes. Of course, I've been lately going over a bit, but I'm going to try to stick to my 30 minutes today. But I can never cover every story that is worthy of attention. So please don't think because I don't mention a particular thing that I'm not aware of it or I have no interest in it and so forth. But you can't get it all in. So before in fact, I'm going to have a shortened time to do that today. Welcome my Instagram audience too, particularly. I'm going to have a shortened time to do that today because I want to talk about some housekeeping issues. I'm going to dedicate Fridays to doing that. Talk about some housekeeping issues, so to bring you sort of into the inside of my campaign and into what we're doing. I know that the mainstream media is acting like I'm not a real candidate, but I am. And in fact, I was just looking at my schedule. In about a week, I'll be back in Iowa for the big Iowa State game, and I'll be speaking there at a rally that morning. So the people of Iowa are going to find out that there is another candidate in the race, and they're going to find out that I am a real candidate, and I guarantee you that they're going to respond because I know that I represent the values that they hold dear, and a lot of these people do not. It's just that plain and simple. So don't in any way be discouraged by what the mainstream media is doing or not doing. They've got their own agenda. We're going to have to force their hand. That's the only way it's going to happen. Clearly, I am the one candidate that they don't want to talk about. And, of course, we know why. It's because I'm the only candidate who's coming at this from a biblical worldview. No other candidate is. Every other candidate is coming at this from a traditional kind of conservative worldview. And I always say, okay, you say you're conservative. Why are you conservative? Where does your conservatism come from? What are the underpinnings of it? What's the foundation for it? Because I've seen people who said they were conservative, a little wind blew them right off course. They didn't give it a second thought. So I want to know what roots you and grounds you in conservative thought. I am conservative because I am Christian. I'm conservative because I adhere to a biblical worldview. Okay? And not because the Republican Party taught me, but because God has taught me through his word, and my beloved father, the late William Jackson, taught me principles as I was growing up, which I found to be completely consistent with the scripture, and that have held me in good stead my entire life. I mean, so for example, the Bible says, if any would not work, neither should he eat. My father taught me that before I had ever read it in the Bible. My father says, son, you work for yourself. You make your own life. It is up to you what to do. And he used to tell me, I don't take care of grown people. I'm teaching you how to grow up and work for yourself. I've shared with you all, when I was in the Marine Corps, my wife and I had moved to Quincy, Massachusetts. That was my first duty station after training. I was stationed at Naval Air Station South Weymouth, air radar technician there. And I was living in public housing, really, in Quincy, Massachusetts, on Harv's Neck. And we didn't have very much money at all. I mean, I was, at that point, private first class, I think. I don't even think I'd been promoted to corporal at that point. I think I was promoted shortly thereafter, but still, I mean, there was no money. And I went out and found a job. At that point, 19, 20 years old, found a job doing what? I found a job cleaning toilets. I was actually an office cleaning job, but I was the low man on the totem pole, so I cleaned the bathrooms. And did it proudly and gladly because I was bringing money into my family that we desperately needed. And then I did that for a while, and then I graduated. I became an RCA television contract salesman. As I've said before, this is completely foreign to the younger generation. But when color TVs first came out, and people were buying these big, expensive color televisions, which they wanted to keep for as long as they could, we actually sold them contracts for the repair of the television. Well, nowadays, of course, unless you buy one of those $3,000 or $4,000 humongous things, the likelihood is people, which seem to have almost no technical problems at all, or very rarely, but people don't get those repaired for the most part. I mean, now you can buy the flat screen TV, 32-inch flat screen TV for about $150. The thing lasts 5, 6, 7, 8 years. When it goes, you just throw it away and get another one. But during that time, people actually had contracts to get their televisions repaired when they broke down. Because, of course, we weren't using solid state technology. We weren't using transistors. We weren't using, the high-tech chips that we use now in devices. We were using cathode ray tubes. And, people you were going and replacing tubes that burned out and all that. Well, I sold those. That was my next job, selling those. I was the guy I'd call you on the phone. It's like I'm calling people now to raise money. Call you on the phone. Hey, I'm Earl W. Jackson. I'm calling you because from our CA office, we want to help you make sure your television continues to work well for you. And I was the top salesman. But I started cleaning toilets, and I did television contract. I mean, work has dignity. I was taught that by my dad. The Word of God teaches that. But at any rate, here again, there I go, kind of. But these are my thoughts. And by the way, we're in trouble as a country now. Nobody's even talking about the crisis in the work ethic. We have a crisis in the work ethic in our country. We've got a generation of people now who are saying, why should I work? Why should I need to work? And you got an idiot in the White House who is perfectly happy to pay people not to work. And so we're in trouble, because when the work ethic goes, our productivity goes. Our productivity goes, our prosperity goes. Our prosperity goes, all of our power, all of our might, all of our security, our protection that comes as a result of our being productive and innovative and efficient, all of that goes. And it's on the way out. I mean, have you noticed it too? You go to places, you try to deal with service, you call places, and it's almost like they're doing you a favor to even answer the phone. It's really a rather remarkable shift, again, in the cultural milieu of our country, the cultural atmosphere of our country, which used to celebrate working. Working hard was a good thing, you know. You enjoyed work. You got satisfaction out of work. I mean, you earned money. You took care of your family. Nowadays, hey, who needs it? I'm not doing it. I flipped burgers at a place called Geno's. It was a fast food restaurant. It wasn't a big chain. But I flipped burgers. I sold shoes. I mean, you know. But I was taught that by my dad. Son, work is important. You need to learn to work. You need to learn to earn money for yourself. Anyway, look, today is Friday. I want to focus on some housekeeping matters. And so let me mention the first thing. I mentioned September 9th, I'll be out in Iowa. I got to get back. Let's see. I'm going on the 9th. Well, actually, no, I'm not going to get back for that Sunday, unfortunately. But 2 weeks hence, I've got to be in Chicago, Iowa, and North Carolina, all in essentially the same weekend. I'm speaking in Chicago on Friday. I'm speaking in... No, let me take that back. I'm speaking in Chicago on Thursday. I'm speaking in Iowa on Friday. I'm speaking in North Carolina on Saturday. Now, we've got this plan to a T if the airlines cooperate and we don't get delays, but it's going to be nip and tuck. I know we'll make the Chicago event because we'll get out there early enough to be there for that. The Iowa event, we're going to have to depend upon the airlines to not end up canceling or delaying our flights unduly so that we can't make it to Iowa. And then the same thing is true for North Carolina. We'll be leaving. That's right. I'll be at the Iowa event on Friday night, and I'll be going to the North Carolina event. I'm speaking Saturday afternoon at the Faith and Freedom Coalition event in North Carolina, I guess a couple of hours outside of Charlotte. I need an airplane, folks. I need an airplane because this is going to be nip and tuck, but there's a lot of this to come. This is really just the first situation where, you know, everybody's saying, no, don't say no to us. You can make it. You can make it. You can. And so, yeah, we've gone through and, okay, if we catch this flight at that time, but this is exceedingly difficult without an airplane. Now, I haven't consulted with my attorney about the legalities of somebody donating a plane. I am pretty sure, however, that in-kind donations of that kind are unlimited. I'm pretty sure. In other words, if you're providing a service, that there's no limit on that. You know, so you can go beyond the $3,300 limit. Now, if I'm wrong about that, forgive me. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. But if somebody watching me knows somebody with an airplane and believes in what I'm doing and wants to help me to get around, please get in touch with me. ewjackson@ewjackson.com. ewjackson@ewjackson.com. By the way, we're going to be changing our email system because, as always, we end up getting sabotaged by the left. They basically put out a lot of complaints about our email system. At one point, folks, my stand emails, at one point, Gmail would not allow them to go through. I'm not talking about they go to spam folder. I'm talking about they were blocked completely. So you send an email to somebody with a Gmail address, it bounces back, says, this email could not go forward because your email, blah, 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 blah. Now, sending anybody else, they could get it. Sometimes it might land in this spam folder, but they could get it. Gmail completely blocked us. That's not an accident. They know who we are. They know what we stand for. They don't like it. And they're going to do everything they can to make it difficult, if not impossible, for us to function. I mean, that's happened as long as I've been active. I've had that. That's why I travel with security now, because, you know, I get threats. So if you know anybody with an airplane, or if you're watching me right now and you have an airplane and you believe in what I'm doing and what I stand for and you want to help me, that's one of the biggest forms of help I can get right now is for somebody to donate an airplane to me, somebody to provide me with an airplane and a couple pilots to fly me around when I need to go to various places. Now, I'm not traveling as much now and probably won't be traveling as much now as I will after the beginning of the year, because my main focus is going to be just a small number of those early states. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Iowa, so it's not going to require a lot of back and forth, although having an airplane would make it easier for me to get home sometime and see my lovely wife and be at my church, but I'm going to be camping out a lot in Iowa, okay? I think I'm doing Iowa twice in September, and then I don't know how many times in October, November, December. I'll be in Iowa a lot. So, and you say, well, wow, I don't know anybody with an airplane. Pray. Okay, this is where prayer comes in. Pray that the Lord will open a door of opportunity for somebody to provide me with an airplane. Okay, and of course I need not only an airplane, I need pilots as well, who can get me around where I need to go, because that's the first, probably of many times. It's going to be very, very difficult for me to be everywhere I need to be, trying to fly commercial. And by the way, pray for me for that particular weekend. I'll tell you exactly when that happens, so that you can target that. Excuse me. That's going to be. Yeah, that's going to be the 21st, the 22nd, and the 23rd. And then I'm due back at my church on the 24th for a Honor Israel Day. So really, I've got 4 engagements. I got to get back to my home church, but we got a plan for how we're going to get that done in order to make sure that I'm back. So I've got 4 engagements that weekend. Well, if I had my own airplane, or somebody to fly me around. It would be very simple, because after the North Carolina event, which happens on Saturday afternoon, now I'm 6 hours away. I've got to get back to the Virginia Beach area. If I had my own plane, I'd be back an hour after the event is over. Have the evening to rest, get up the next day, go to church, and so forth. But, trying to make all this work without an airplane, it's difficult. No, mind you, I'm not about to quit because I don't have an airplane, but I'm just saying it would make things a lot easier. So pray for me that the Lord will provide me with an airplane that will allow me to get around a whole lot better than I'm able to using commercial airlines. Okay, that's number one. Number two, obviously, if, say, my lawyer to come back and say, no, nobody can donate an airplane to you. No, because that does exceed the limit on contributions. You have to raise the money to lease an airplane, when I buy one, but to lease an airplane, to pay the pilots and all that. So that's where we come back to the money issue. Folks, in order to run an effective presidential campaign, you don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars, you need millions, okay? I put it out there that if I get 1 million Americans to donate $20.24, which is, look, 1 million Americans is 1/3%, okay? 3.3 million Americans, 1% of the population. If I've got 1 million Americans, which is 1/3 of 1% of the American people. Now, if you make that only voting age adults, which is probably somewhere in the vicinity of about, I'm just going to take a guess, but it's an educated guess, probably somewhere in the vicinity of about 175 million people. So if you take 1% of that, then it's more like maybe, let's call it 200 million to round it off. Let's say, so it's 0.5%, okay? 1 million be 0.5% of the voting age population. We'd have enough money to run this campaign and run an effective campaign. In fact, run a victorious campaign. So that's why I'm asking you for $20.24. Now look, maybe you're in a position to do more, so you can do $200.24, or you can do $2,000.24, so you can max out and give the full $3,300 yourself, and maybe your wife could give $3,300, and we're off and running. But we know most people can't do that. Sadly, in this economy, most Americans can't write a check for $3,300 to a political campaign. But I think almost all Americans can write a check for $20.24. And that's what we're hoping for. 1 million Americans to give $20.24. Since another candidate borrowed my approach, by the way. We've been doing this from the beginning. Another candidate borrowed it, but, I guess imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, or it's the form of flattery, sincere or not. But at any rate, so we need an influx of cash in our campaign right now. Okay, we need an influx of cash in our campaign. If you haven't heard from me on the telephone, you're probably going to, because I'm going to call everybody, everybody in the world, it seems. I'm on the phone now, folks, an average of a minimum of 3. Yesterday I was on the phone about 4.5 hours. A minimum of 3, probably an average of 4 to 6 hours. I'm planning to spend the entire day on the phones raising funds on Monday. The entire day. Let me make sure I'm not talking, oh no, you know what? I'm not, because Monday is Labor Day, a holiday. So I can't do that. So I'm going to probably do that on Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday. We don't have an NAC call on Tuesday. I'll probably do it on Tuesday. So at any rate, folks, give the most generous donation you can. I am in this race. I am not going anywhere. I'm in it to go all the way, all the way. Once again, let me just clarify something. I'm amazed at how quickly this time flies, by the way. Yes, I am in this campaign to get a message out. There's no question about it. I believe America's got to come back to God. America's got to come back to family as God designed it. We've got to get rid of all this racial, polarizing, demagoguing nonsense that the Democrat Party traffics in. and on it goes. I mean, those are sort of the top three issues that I've been focused on to kind of encapsulate what my campaign is about. Because look, I really believe that if America comes back to God, and by the way, if you didn't see it, I did it on Instagram, 7 words to secure America's future. 7 words to secure America's future. Make sure you check that out, because I lay out the biblical basis for what America needs in order to have a secure future, in order to be saved. But in order to do what God has called us to do, we've got to have the money, okay? And God's not going to rain down money from the sky. It's going to come from people. So I'm asking you to ask everybody you know. Tell them, look, there's a godly man running. He's coming from a biblical worldview perspective. He is different than any other candidate. And as a result of that, the mainstream media is essentially boycotting his campaign, treating him like he's not a real candidate, and he is a real candidate. How do I know? Because I'm supporting him. And use yourself as, how do I know? Because I'm going to vote for him. So go to my website, ewjacksonforpresident.com. Give whatever you can right now, okay? And again, if it's a small amount, give it monthly. If it's $5, give $5 a month. You know, just sign up to do that until this thing is decided. Number 2, I want to remind everybody, I have not resigned as president of STAND. I've not resigned as pastor of my church, and I'm not going to. I'm not doing that unless I'm elected president. If I'm elected president, that's a different matter. And even then, I'll determine whether I resign or just take a leave of absence, because these things are my heart. I'm dedicated to seeing them through to fulfillment. And if I were to be elected president and spent 8 years in the White House, when I come out, I would finish building out my church and STAND. I would hope in a much freer and more culturally friendly environment that I would have helped to create during my years in the presidency. But I'm not quitting my mission. My mission is to promote the gospel of Jesus Christ and the truth of God's word. And because I love my country, I want to help fulfill that mission in America and for America, so that America remains a shining city on a hill rather than becoming a footnote of history and a dung heap, which is what the Democrat Party will lead it into if we allow them. So I'm asking you not to forget STAND. Staying true to America's national destiny. StandAmerica.us is the website. StandAmerica.us is the website. Go there, check that out. We've also got a new project. Well, it's not new anymore, but it's a big project that's kind of become the central focus of our organization, which is the Forgotten Children Project. That might again be changed to America's Forgotten Children, because we're competing with others for that name, Forgotten Children Project. But the essence of it is to point out to people that children all over this country are being murdered by the hundreds since the Defund the Police movement began. We're up to close to 400 children now. We're approaching 400 children now, okay? And it's a travesty. It's a travesty of justice. This attack on the police, this attack on law enforcement, this attack on law and order has been one of the biggest tragedies to ever happen to the black community, because most of these children are black. Not all, but most of them are black children who are being murdered. Innocent children, murdered in their beds, murdered in their backyards, murdered riding their bikes along the street, murdered in their living rooms playing video games. I mean, all kinds of murdered in their sleep, because some thugs decided that they were going to have a shootout or shoot up a house or whatever, and an innocent child is murdered. Chicago is the epicenter of this, and nearly 90% of the cases of these child murders go unsolved. Help us. Don't forget STAND. If you've been a contributor to STAND, keep contributing. If you haven't been and you want to do that, I mean, there's some people who don't want their names recorded for a political campaign for whatever reasons, because it doesn't offer any anonymity. If you contribute to my political campaign, we've got to record that, and that's got to be publicly displayed by the Federal Election Commission so that anybody can go and look up and see that you gave. But your giving to STAND is anonymous. So if that's important to you, then by all means, give an anonymous donation to STAND. Help us to keep STAND going. Because STAND depends primarily on me. We're a small organization, so I am not only the CEO, I am also the development officer. So that means I raise the money for STAND. And you can imagine, I'm a little bit distracted at the moment. So don't forget STAND. Pray for STAND as well. And don't forget my church. You know, people think, well, you know, you run for president, you would think that would help your church, that would help STAND. It doesn't. And the reason is that it removes a key person from full attention on those areas. So in other words, the attention I've been able to give to my church, the attention I've been able to give to STAND is somewhat diminished, of course, somewhat, by a political campaign. So I'm asking you to not forget that those are part of, look, I see my campaign, to be very honest, folks, in the mainstream media, when they finally pay attention, they're going to dredge up all this stuff and try to scare the American people and thinking I'm trying to create a theocracy. I'm not. I have no interest in that, couldn't stand the idea. But my campaign is an extension of my ministry. It really is. It's an extension of the calling of God on my life to represent Him, to seek and to save that which was lost, and to destroy the works of the devil. So if you support me, remember these other things that I'm doing, because they are important to me. And I really believe they are important to the country. In fact, frankly, STAND is really the basis for my political campaign. I think because of STAND, I got to speak all over the country. Because of STAND, I ended up as a radio talk show host. Of course, got to develop a relationship with millions of people all over the country. And so STAND has really been a kind of platform, a kind of foundation for the other things that I'm doing, and particularly this campaign for president. So I would just ask you to remember STAND. Remember, if you sign up for a $25 per month Patriot Partnership level, I'll send you a signed, free, numbered copy of my book, okay? And yes, some of you may be thinking, when am I going to get mine? Believe me, folks, I am behind. I keep saying I'm going to get these out of the way, and I am before things heat up any more than they are. But that's going to, and anybody who's waiting for a signed copy, numbered copy of my book, you'll get it. But you know, you can buy the book wherever books are sold. You can buy the book from my publisher at a 15% discount. That's faithfultext.com. And by the way, I've neglected to mention this, but my book is available on audio. Some of you may already know that, but it is available on audio. It's not my voice. Believe me, I wanted to do it myself, but I just didn't have time. And the day may come, if I am not elected president, I'm going to probably narrate the book myself, because I really think the book would be a lot better with my voice rather than somebody else's voice. I've listened to it, and it's not bad, but it's not me. But at any rate, for those of you who like audiobooks, I do. You can buy the audiobook as well and listen to it in your car, listen to it when you're taking a shower, and so on and so forth, so that you don't have to just be sitting somewhere reading the book. All right, you know what? I'm almost out of time. I didn't get to any of the issues that I intended to get to, so let me mention one, only one, and then I'll come back on Monday and pick up on some of these things. Again, folks, there's more stuff that I could talk about than I have time to, particularly today. But I do want to mention this. The ATF is trying to run the law and create universal background checks as a regulatory matter. Now, this is something that's been discussed over and over and over again. There have not been the votes in Congress to create this. In other words, you understand what universal background checks mean. You go to buy a weapon at a firearm at a gun store, you're going to get you're going to have a background check. So what do they mean by universal background checks? Universal background checks means you decide, you're going to sell one of your guns to your neighbor. You decide, in fact, depending upon the nature of the transaction, this could even be involved with giving away a gun, which I've done, by the way. You won't be able to do that without a background check. Now, what the ATF is doing is very slick, because what they're saying is, well, we're going to redefine what it means, in effect, to be a gun dealer, whether you're selling the gun for profit, whether you're a collector. In other words, they're going to get all in your private business. And folks, I would just say this as I close. None of this is designed to try to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. This stuff is all designed to try to limit and, frankly, to train us to accept limits on our Second Amendment rights. That's what it's all designed for. I mean, let's face it, criminals don't care what regulations you put forth. They don't care. They're not interested. It's the law-abiding citizen that finds themselves hampered. Now, for example, here in Virginia, because of Ralph Northam, the fact that he sat in the same seat as Thomas Jefferson probably would make Thomas Jefferson roll over in his grave if he were in his grave. I hope Thomas Jefferson is in heaven. I want to meet him there. But the man was just a complete waste. Well, he got this law passed. He and these crazy Democrats got this law passed. In Virginia, you can only buy one gun a month. Now, that's really helping crime, isn't it? Oh, yes, the criminal is really, he's hampered now. So I go to a gun store. I see a couple guns I like, or 3 guns I like. I say, man, I want to get those. Sorry, nope. You can only buy one. You can come back next month and get the second. Come back the month after that and get the third. Now, all that is an inconvenience. Meant to tell me that there's something suspicious about me wanting more than one gun. And I'm not going to be allowed to get more than one gun in a month. Yes, there's something from exercising your Second Amendment rights. It's about chipping away at our Second Amendment rights until they're virtually non-existent. That's what this is really all about. That's what it's always been about from the left's perspective. There may be some sincerely misguided people who think that placing all these restrictions on law-abiding citizens is somehow going to make our country safer. How's that working out for them? How's it working out in Chicago, a place where even my security, when we travel to Chicago, when we travel to Illinois, my security can't even bring a firearm into the state? How is that working out, Chicago? Well, of course, Chicago's the safest city in America because, after all, they've got these very, very tight gun restrictions. Every single day, there's carnage in Chicago. And every weekend, the reports are like a war zone. And the last time I counted, 20% of the children who are murdered on our Forgotten Children website come from Chicago. Probably certainly one of, if not the most gun restrictive state in the country. Because criminals don't care what your gun restrictions are. Now, law-abiding citizens, they're disarmed. They're at the mercy of criminals, of course, because that's what they want. Really, they want you at the mercy of tyranny, at the mercy of the government, at the mercy of whatever they say. And as far as they're concerned, criminals can just help the process of keeping you suppressed and dependent. When those criminals break into a house, when they break into a place, I just saw a story the other day where a guy got killed because he came home to a home invasion, didn't know it, and when he walked in the door, they shot him dead. Don't shoot me. I'm not armed. Can I call the police? Give me a minute. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make sense until you understand what the real motive is. And the real motive is not your safety. The real motive is control. And by the way, notice this administration. This is what they do. At first blush, they admit, well, I can't do that. That's not constitutional. I can't do that. That's not legal. And then later on, they think about it and say, well, you know, wait a minute. Who cares what's constitutional? Who cares what's legal? Let's do what we want to do, and then let them try to stop us. No reverence for the rule of law, no reverence for the Constitution. The only thing they care about is control over everything and everybody. And getting firearms out of the hands of law-abiding citizens is critical to their effort, because when the day comes that they feel they must exercise absolute control of the American people, they don't want anybody being able to defend themselves. So, for example, when they declare one of those emergencies, did you see my tweet yesterday? I sent out a tweet yesterday. Let me see if I can find that tweet real quick, in which, oh, here it is. Nope, that's not it. Here it is. In which I talked about, let's see if I can find it. Oh, where is it? I hope they, did they, oh, that's pinned. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I don't think this is yesterday, but I said censorship, disarming the populace, and emergency powers are the triumvirate of the would-be tyrant. Censorship, disarming the populace, and emergency powers are the triumvirate of the would-be tyrant. There you go. ATF, universal background checks. We will decide whether you're a private person with a collection. We will decide whether you're trading or selling a gun for profit, and then we will determine whether you'll be allowed to do that or not. Folks, chipping away at our constitutional rights, rights given to us by Almighty God, and we now have a rogue government that is much more interested in denying us those rights than they are in doing what our founding fathers said the role of the government would be, which would be to secure those rights. God bless you, everybody. I've got to go. I'm way over time again, but I guess that's the way it's happening these days. Like I said, there's a lot to say. There's a lot to do. I solicit your prayers. I solicit your support. Go to my website, ewjacksonforpresident.com. Go to standamerica.us. Go to the church website, thecall.org. Check us out. Find out all the things that I'm doing to try to serve God and to serve our country. In the meantime, you stand up, step up, speak up, refuse to back up, because we cannot be defeated if we will not quit. Because we are on God's side.